So I will be using this giant cake and an 8mm hook to make this basket. To begin, I will keep my thread and my hook ready, and I will also keep my stitch marker close by. If you do not have a stitch marker, you may also use a bobbin pin, and this will help you to mark where you have stopped if you cannot count your stitches yet. But if you can count your stitches, then you don't need to use any of them, and you can just go on with the count. To start the first round, I am going to use a magic circle because it's easy to regulate how many stitches I need. If you don't know how to make a magic circle, I'll demonstrate how I make mine. I'll take the last part of the thread, keep it facing me, and then I will loop the long side of the thread around my fingers once, and then I'll loop it again and form an X at the back of my hand and bring it back, and I'll use my thumb to secure it. So there you will have an X at the back of your hand on the threads, and your thumb is securing the threads. And then you take your hook and pass it under the first thread and pull the second thread through, twist it to form a knot, and then hold it secure and use the long side of the thread to form a slip stitch to secure your circle. And there you have a magic circle which you can easily pull or just stretch again to the size you need. If this was too fast for you, you can pause the video and follow it along again and see how I make this magic circle, which we are going to do our first round of. Ready? And we are going to place in this magic circle 6 single crochets. So if you already have your magic circle made, you can make them with me. I'll go ahead and insert my hook, pull up a loop, and pull through. So I will do that again, and I will keep making single crochets until I have 6 of them. So go ahead and make 6 single crochets for round 1. I have 4 single crochets in my circle. This is the 5th and the 6th. So you can count your single crochets from here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single crochets, and from there you can pull, secure your loop, and use the tail to pull and adjust your magic circle tight until the 2 ends of the single crochets meet and you form a circle. And so for round 1 we have made 6 single crochets, and we are going to go into the very first single crochet we made, put our hook into the first chain space, pull up a loop and pull it through in form of a slip stitch. And now we are going to chain 1 and start round 2. For round 2, we are going to crochet into all the chain spaces, the 6 chain spaces we created on round 1, but instead of doing 1 single crochet on each chain space, we are going to do 2 single crochets on each chain space. So to start, I will take the tail of the yarn. So to have a neat base, I usually hold it and crochet with it inside my thread so that I can have a neat finishing. If you cannot do that, or if you're still learning your hand placement, you can just leave it hanging and we will sew it in at the end. But if you can, you would hold it like this, and then once you insert your hook, you also pass it through the loose thread and pull your loop and pull through. And again, because we are doing 2 single crochets on each chain space, we are going to go into the same chain space, pull up a loop and pull it through, and there we have 2 single crochets on 1 chain space. And you're going to do this all the way until you come back here on where you began. If you have trouble remembering or counting where you came from, you can use a stitch marker or a bobby pin to mark the place where you started from. So these are the 2 single crochets we made, and this is the chain space, and you place your stitch marker right on the chain space, and that way you'll be able to find it again when you come back, or a bobby pin or a safety pin if you do not have any of those. So go ahead and put 2 single crochets on every one of the chain spaces until the end, and I'll meet you there. Well, we completed round 2, and now we are going to start with round 3. For round 3, what you are going to do is we're going to slip stitch, and then we are going to place a single crochet on the next chain space, and then we are going to place 2 single crochets into the next chain space, and then on the next chain space we are going to do a single crochet alone on its lonesome and on the next we are going to do 2 single crochets into the same chain space. You are going to repeat that same pattern, doing alternating 1 single crochet in 1 chain space and 2 single crochets into the next chain space, and do that all the way around. I will meet you here. To begin round 4, we are going to make a chain, and then we are going to keep doing an increase, but this time we are going to do 2 single crochets on each of the 2 chain spaces, and then 2 single crochets together on the 3rd chain space. So you're going to place 1 single crochet, and into the next chain place a 2nd single crochet, and then into the 3rd chain space you're going to place 2 single crochets together, and you're going to repeat that again. 1 single crochet, the 2nd single crochet, and then into the 3rd chain space you're going to put 2 single crochets together, and you're going to repeat this pattern all along until we meet again at the beginning of the round. This is the end of round 4, and I have 24 stitches altogether counting, and I am going again into the first chain space, and I will pull up a loop and slip stitch, and then we are going to begin our round 5. For round 5, again I am going to chain 1, and then I am going to place 1 single crochet on the first chain space, another single crochet on the 2nd chain space, and a 3rd single crochet on the 3rd space. Then on the 4th space I am going to put 2 single crochets together. So if you can notice that the pattern is repeating, it keeps repeating in increments of 1. So we first did 1 single crochet followed by 2 single crochets together, and then we did 2 single crochets in different chain spaces followed by 2 single crochets in the same space, and now we are doing 3 individual single crochets and doing 2 single crochets in the same chain space, and you're going to repeat this pattern with 3 individual single crochets followed by 2 single crochets together all the way around until we reach the end of the round, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. I am at the very end of round 5 and I have 30 stitches altogether, and I am going again to end the round as usual with a slip stitch through the first single crochet chain space that we created, and by now you will be getting a nice circle going on. For round 6, I'm going again to chain 1, and then I'm going to place 1 single crochet, 2, 3 into the next single crochet, and the 4th single crochet into its own chain space, and then on the 5th chain space I'm going to put 2 single crochets together. So if you can follow along, this time we are putting 4 individual single crochets followed by 2 single crochets together in the same chain space, and we are going to repeat that all around, and I'll meet you again at the beginning of round 6. At the end of round 6 you should have 36 stitches. After counting and confirming that you have 36 stitches, you're going to slip stitch again into the first chain we made and close off your round 6. I am finished with round 6, and this is how the base looks. And the best thing about this project is that you can adjust it according to how big you want your basket to be. So I do want my basket to be slightly bigger. You can see this one is this 17 centimeters, and so I want it to be at least this big, or maybe 22 centimeters. So I'm going to do 2 or 3 more rounds. You can do as many rounds as you want, depending on how big and how small you want your project to be. If you want to do more rounds, like I do, then what you have to do is at the beginning of each round, you have to do a chain 1. And after that chain, you're going to do individual single crochets, increasing with each coming round. So say the last round we did 4 individual single crochets, and then followed by an increase, which is 2 single crochets in 1 chain space, and then we repeated the same thing all along. So the pattern increases with each round as you go. You will increase with 1 individual single crochet space, and you're going to keep increasing until you reach the size that you need. I'm going to do a few more rounds, and I will meet you at the end of my round, and I'll tell you what number of the round that is, and I'll also tell you how many stitches I have on that round, so you have a reference. So I have made 9 rounds, or 9 rows in total, and this is how it looks. And I have 54 stitches together. To turn this into a basket, it's going to be so easy because we are, from now on, there is no increasing or counting. We are basically just going to do single crochets. And so we are going to do, as usual, a chain at the beginning, and then we are going to place single crochets all around the circle we have created. However, you're not going to insert your hook through the chains like we did all through the project. Now you're just going to use this back. There are 2 chain spaces. If you can see that, there are 2 chain spaces on your project that we have been crocheting through, but this time you're going to skip the first one and just use the second one. So you go through the second one, and that's called back loop crocheting, and you're going to insert 1 single crochet, and then on to the next. You're also going to use just the back loop of your chain space and make a single crochet. That is all we are going to do for this round, our, I don't know if I should call it our upbringing round, but this is the round that forms the cylindrical shape of the basket. So go ahead and just place single crochets on the back loop of your chain spaces all around. I did 9 rounds, and so I have 54 chains in total, and so I will keep going until I have 54 single crochets on the back loop of my project. So go ahead and place those single crochets all around, and I will meet you at the end of this round. I have gone all the way around making single crochets on the back loop of the chain space, and in the end you can see that your basket is starting to fold and form a basket. So this is the row that is going to turn our crochet from just a simple straight circle and start forming the basket. So I'm in the end of the row, and I am going to, again using the same back loop, I'm going to slip stitch to close that row, and then I am going to make 1 chain, and then I will start making single crochets all the way around. But this time I'll just do it the normal way. I'm not going back into the back loop. I am just going to go through both of the chain threads, and then I'll make my single crochet. So from now on you continue making the single crochets, going all the way through, not on the back loop anymore. We only do that once, and you pull through and you continue all the way through. And remember, if you're a beginner, you need to keep track of where you started. So you would place your stitch marker or bobby pin or anything you're using to mark this spot. You'll place it here, and then you keep going round, and when you come back here you will slip stitch like we have done all along and chain 1 and continue. So make at least I would say 10 rows of this. I am going to go along and I will show you how many rows I've made and how long that is, depending on what length of basket you want. And keep going row after row until you have the length of the basket that you want, and I'll meet you at the end to show you how my basket turns out and how many rows I've done. And voila. So I have done 9 rows since you last saw me, and including the row that we did in the beginning, so that makes it 10 rows in total. You can see all the rows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you could stop here, then you have yourself a basket. But I do like things to be a little neater, a little more finished, so I'm just going to do a row of slip stitches so that I can have some kind of border. So if you want to do that as well, you could go along and see how I do that. Slip stitch to close this row. Because I want it neat, I'm going to put 1 row of slip stitches all around to have a thicker edge, and I am going to do that into the back loop like we did at the beginning, so that it folds a little bit and it doesn't just hang very wide open. So to do that, I will go, we have these 2 chain threads, so I will take my hook into the back loop of the chain space, and then I'll pull it through. Again, I'll go into the back loop, pull up a loop and pull it through. So I will go ahead and make these slip stitches on the back loop all the way around because I want to create some kind of border on my basket and just give it a neater shape. So you can go along and do it all the way through. I'll meet you at the end. I have done a line of slip stitch on the back loop of the top of my basket, and if you can see now, I have a much more defined, thicker and more structured edge. And now my basket is a little bit more constructed. It's put together, it's not hanging wide open. So this slip stitch has given it a good structure that I'm very happy with. And so I'm going to show you guys how we're just going to tie off and be done with our project and enjoy our baskets. And this is the last chain that I made, the last slip stitch. So I'm going again into the back loop, so to keep the pattern smooth and uniform, I'm just going to slip stitch and pull up a long loop. And now you will take your scissors and cut the thread, and then I will pull that thread right through the loop, pull it tight, and I have closed off the project. So the first way I tuck in my tails, I usually use a crochet or knit needle, and this is a blunt needle that you can use to just sew your ends into your project. But that also depends. Sometimes you have a thread that's slightly thicker and it doesn't go through the needle, or you don't have the needle at all. And if you don't, then I will show you also how you can do it with just another crochet hook. So if you do have the needle, what you will do is you will start inserting into corners. Just try to hide your thread as you go. You just insert it in there and pull to make sure that this part is well secured and it doesn't look flowed. And then just go ahead and insert into random stitches. Into random stitches and pull the thread through. And you just go along and do that randomly, either in a straight line or whatever you like, until you are sure that enough thread has been sewn into your project, and then you can cut the loose end off. Another way you can do that if you do not have a yarn needle is use another crochet hook. So I have here a 6mm crochet hook, which is slightly smaller than the 8mm that I was using for this project. I'm using a smaller one because it will be easier to pass through the different stitches. And what I will do is I will insert the hook on the opposite side of where the thread is, and then I will pull that thread through. So I will just keep weaving this thread around my project to hide it. Make sure you just place it in a way that is neat and it won't look like you messed up your pattern. You can take a pair of scissors and just cut off the end, and there you'll be having your basket. This is the difference in how much yarn I used for the project. I started with the full cake and I used it all the way to here, and I still have the middle part left, and that's for the basket with the measurements I told you, with this kind of basket measurement. So if you want a bigger or a smaller basket, then you can use this as reference on how much yarn you need. And I hope you enjoy your basket, and let's keep making more cute little projects together. See you next time.